After a 20-year journey, Nigeria's Petroleum Industry Bill has been signed into law by President Muhammadu Buhari. The origins of the bill trace back to the Oil and Gas Reforms Committee constituted by former President Olusegun Obasanjo's administration. The report of the committee formed parts of the bill, which was introduced to the National Assembly by former President Umaru Yar'Adua's administration in 2008. Now, controversies have trailed the bill almost since day one. The bill has languished through various election cycles and debates. Crude oil dominates Nigeria's economy, accounting for around 90% of export earnings. The country has the largest oil and gas reserves in sub-Saharan Africa, with an estimated 37 billion barrels of oil and 188 trillion cubic feet of gas. Yet for decades, the virtually ungovernable industry has been plagued by poor leadership, eye-watering corruption, and environmental degradation. From opaque licensing deals to a lack of refining capacity and more, Nigeria has failed to make as much out of the industry as it should. The bill, now the Petroleum Industry Act, aims to establish good governance, best practices, and ease of doing business in the oil and gas industry by clarifying roles and responsibilities of officials and institutions, enabling frontier exploration, mandating improved environmental compliance, and transforming the NNPC into a commercially viable enterprise. Our focus today is Nigeria passing the Petroleum Industry Act. I'm Tolulokwe Adeleru Balogun. Welcome. This is Business Edge. Joining me today is Joachim Mak-Ebong, Senior Analyst for SBM Intelligence. Joachim, welcome to Business Edge, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Tolu.
So we know that the PIA now is 20 years in the making, and there has been so much controversy and debate around the oil and gas sector in Nigeria in terms of it not living up to its full potential. So basically, I'll start with this question. Why did Nigeria need the PIA as it's known now?
Nigeria needed the PIA because there are many issues around how companies can invest in the country's petroleum and gas sector, and there were various other issues that the Act needed to address, particularly with regard to things like the status of the subsidy, the state of the NNPC and how we should look like going forward, addressing issues regarding things like host communities and so on. So, due to these various issues, we needed a new act guiding the petroleum industry in the country.
So you've mentioned the NNPC, and this is an entity that's been at the center of a lot of the controversy in Nigeria's oil and gas industry. So one of the main areas of focus has been the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation. For years, it has been accused of graft, corruption, opaque licensing deals, and more. And this entity that oversees such a vital sector of the country's economy actually only published its first audited financial statements after 43 years of operation in 2020. Saying that there was some funny business going on is actually definitely an understatement. So what changes are there for the NNPC under the PIA?
Yeah, so first of all, I think we need to commend the current GMD Melekia report for his attempt to bring some more transparency into the NNPC. They have been publishing regular monthly reports as well as audited financial statements as well. And I'm sure that this is going forward would have been a preparation for the scrutiny the NNPC is going to face. Because under the Petroleum Industry Act, the NNPC will be turned into a company rather than a corporation, and as such, it would then be guided by the new Companies and Allied Matters Act, instead of the NNPC Act under which is currently governed. As such, it will be able to do many more things like raise capital from the stock market, and also there will be additional demands of transparency placed on its operations. And I think that the transparency of the NNPC is one of the major gains of this Petroleum Industry Act.
All right, so let's continue talking about this aspect of it. One of the things that was confirmed with the release of the audited report last year was that Nigeria's refineries are a drain on the sector and the economy. As expected, all of the refineries returned poor results, and the bulk of the losses were attributed to direct operational costs, despite that none of the 4 refineries in the country has also been functional for a number of years. Now, I know SBM collated that data and reached some interesting conclusions. What was that, Joachim? Let us know about it.
Yes, so we had a look at the NNPC monthly report all the way from 2015, and we discovered that the refineries altogether have lost about 470 billion naira in operations since 2015. But perhaps more interestingly, none of those refineries have produced even a drop of refined petrol since July 2019. And with all this time passing, you know, the country continues to spend more and more money on the refineries, money that might have been spent elsewhere. Also, and just this year, together the government has committed about $1 billion across the 3 refineries in order to rehabilitate them and get them back up and running. So apart from the existing losses up to now, there has now been additional resources committed to get them back up and running, and the cost to the country is pretty significant.
So what's the recommendation that SBM has? Because there are those who have said with this particular refinery issue that's going to continue for a number of years, that Nigeria needs to turn it over to private companies, private investors, who will run it and pay a share of the profits or taxes to the country, rather than Nigeria continue to funnel money into what apparently has been nothing but a guzzler. The amount of money you're talking about could have done so many things in the healthcare industry, in the education industry, or rather sectors of Nigeria's economy. So what's the final recommendation that SBM had on this refinery issue?
I'm sure you are aware that several years ago there was an opportunity to sell the refineries to private investors that are interested in them, but that didn't happen because of issues around, again, changing government and the policy changes that come with these changes in government. The ideal scenario in our view is for the refineries to be sold off, to be privatized, so that those who know and those who have the technical know-how and the financial muscle can come in and then take these refineries off the federal government of Nigeria. Already, Nigeria's own financial position as a government is not very encouraging. Just the other day, I think this was Wednesday or so, or Tuesday, the finance minister disclosed that Nigeria was already spending 96% of its revenue just on servicing debt. And I think that given our situation, there are many more things that we can use these very scarce resources for.
So before we wrap up on this NNPC conversation, or part of the conversation, there are a number of proposed regulatory institutions under the PIA, or rather the PIB then, such as the Upstream Regulatory Commission and the Midstream and Downstream Regulatory Authority. But one thing Nigeria does not lack is ministries, departments, and agencies. And the issue has centered on these MDAs delivering on their responsibilities. So with the PIA, what is going to exactly be established for the sector, for the industry?
So, like you rightly pointed out, there's been a raft of new commissions set up, put in the act, and it also means that the existing ones, some of the existing ones, like the DPR and a few others, will also be either be wound down or merged. So you have these new ones taking their place. Hopefully, the PIA has done enough to clarify the various roles and the various regulatory roles of these various bodies, so that we don't have the same issues that we have complained about in the sector over and over. Chief of which, one of the main ones, is, as you rightly said, regulatory overlap, not just in operation of upstream, midstream, and downstream, but also even with regard to the handling issues of pollution and who should pay for the pollution, and how issues of pollution are addressed.
All right, so before we go for a quick break, let's also look at the fact that the PIA establishes the Frontier Exploration Fund. This has been another aspect of the bill, now law, that has been quite controversial. So this will be financed with about 30% of profit from oil and gas of the NNPC Limited from the downstream and midstream gas infrastructure fund. There's been a lot of conversation following this. What do you think about the fund overall? At a time when the world is actually moving away from fossil fuels, Nigeria wants to commit that amount of the profits of the NNPC, oil gas profit, to exploring for more oil, for more crude oil, and for more fossil fuels. What do you think?
Yes, that's a good observation, Tolu. You are exactly right. The one thing that we can't fail to add in this conversation is that we are not talking about where oil is now. We are talking about where oil is going to be in 10 years and 20 years. Now, I know that you are also aware that a number of Western countries are also talking about either banning or suspending new sales of internal combustion engines from 2030 onwards. Now, oil will continue to be in use in one form or another, in one industry or the other. However, the question we have to ask when we talk about things like the Frontier Exploration Fund, when we talk about investing money in rehabilitating refineries, is where is oil likely to be in 10 years and 20 years? That is the real question, because these sums of money can go into public services that will better the lives of Nigerians and put them on a standard footing for the future. However, the overall prognosis for oil as perhaps the dominant energy source in the world is not something that is standing on very firm ground in our view. Oil will continue to be used. However, the extent to which that is going to be is something that is likely to be much less than it is currently. And more so with regard to the price, the actual price of crude oil. Because anything that affects the demand of crude oil in a structural way, particularly with regard to developed countries, is something that will put a full and final cap on the highest amount that the barrel of oil can cost. And that has implications for oil-producing countries like Nigeria.
It definitely does. All right, Joachim, I want you to hold on. When we come back, I'll just ask you what you think the amount should be, because as you said, oil will continue to be in use for a number of years. Nigeria can still make money from it, but is 30% not just a bit too much? And then we'll get into the conversation about the Host Communities Development Trust. This has been one of the main controversial issues surrounding Nigeria's PIB for a number of years. What will the host communities get out of this new act? And who exactly qualifies to be a host community? Let's see if we can get you some answers when we come back right after this break. My guest is Joachim Mak-Ebong, Senior Analyst for SBM Intelligence. Joachim, just before the break, I asked you how much percentage do you think should be taken from the NNPC's oil and gas profits in order to commit to this Frontier Exploration Fund? Because Nigeria can still make some money from crude oil in the coming years.
Yes, Tolu. So that's a good question. I think that in my view, at least, the ideal amount is zero. The ideal amount is zero, and the reason is this: if there is a market for crude oil, and investors come into the country and determine that extracting this crude oil from any particular area of the country is something that is going to be worth their time and worth the investment, that investment is going to happen. I don't think that the Nigerian government needs to take 30% of NNPC profit in order to look for for frontier business where oil may be found in commercial quantity. Typically, investment is going to do that, and the technology exists, and the money, if the market is viable, the market exists. But I also need to reiterate again, like I did just before we went on the break, that efforts to decarbonize are gaining ground in the Western world. And those efforts to decarbonize are not going to slow down. They are likely only to pick up. So if we invest that money into looking for new areas where there's crude oil, who will be able to extract that crude oil at commercial quantity and in a profitable manner? You know, all of these things are questions. And so these are the things that we need to wrestle with. Again, that money can easily go into a fund that will be used to increase the Human Development Index of Nigeria with regard to healthcare, education, provision of things like water and sanitation and so on and so forth. And I think that every spare kobo that Nigeria is able to get from oil going forward should go into these things. And if there is any commercial quantity of oil that can be gotten from anywhere else, I think that foreign investment is going to be able to deal with that one way or the other.
All right. So another fund that is also part of this conversation, oil operators described as settlers are obliged to incorporate a trust, the Host Communities Development Trust, for the benefit of the host communities, and they will make an annual contribution. This is to be based on a certain percentage of their yearly operating expenditure. Now, the host communities asked for 10%, but 3% has actually been signed into law. Joachim, what do you think of this figure? Is this enough? And we know that there are a number of communities that will likely be eligible to access this fund at one point in time.
Indeed, it is probably too small, particularly given the brunt that these communities have borne as a result of oil exploration over the last 5 or 6 decades now. We need to be very clear about what oil proceeds can do for Nigeria as a whole. We need to be very clear about, and I think that given the size of our population already, it is already a certainty that oil money will no longer be enough to benefit Nigeria as a whole. What it can do is that it can benefit those host communities, and that money should ideally go to them. Let me just give you a quick example. So the United Arab Emirates, for example, has a population of only 10 million people. In Saudi Arabia, the world's largest oil exporter, and the country that has gained the most from the sales of oil, has only 34 million people. Iraq, who also have got a lot from oil proceeds, have only 40 million people. How many people does Nigeria have? 150 million easily. Some estimates say over 200 million.
Yeah.
And so the question is, this money can be of benefit to some of us, but it cannot be of benefit to all of us. Everybody else has to find ways of getting revenue and investing in services and all of that, while these host communities get this money back and use it to move forward together. This idea that oil money will be enough to share around in Nigeria is something that doesn't really fit with the fact. I think that 3% is too much. I think that 5%, maybe even 10% would have been too much. At any rate, just because of the brunt that they have borne, and because of the fact that Nigeria is too big now. Nigeria is too big now for that money to go around everybody in a way that will be beneficial to everybody.
All right, Joachim, time is hardly ever enough when we get into these conversations, but I want just 2 sentences from you. It's been 20 years in the making. It's finally been assented to. There's still a few more things before the act itself fully becomes effective. But do you think that Nigeria is finally headed in the right direction for its oil and gas industry with the signing of the Petroleum Industry Act?
Well, there are several things. There are some things in the bill that are potentially problematic. For example, the section on who can and cannot import refined petroleum products, for example. That bit is a very problematic bit that we are going to run into trouble with later. And also, in the last 20 years, since this bill was first proposed, Nigeria has wasted 2 oil booms and has wasted the commodity super cycle in the middle of that. So the bill is too late to get the maximum benefit, but it can be of some benefit to us. So I think maybe we just have to, take what we can get from that.
Yeah. It might be cliche to say time will tell, but really in this situation, it's only time that will let us know how successful the PIA will be. Joachim Mak-Ebong, Senior Analyst for SBM Intelligence, thank you for joining me on Business Edge.
Thank you for having me, too.
All right. And as I said earlier, while the bill has been signed into an act by President Muhammadu Buhari, there are a few more steps before it comes into force. There will be a gazetted version of the act that will actually give the commencement date. And a few of the provisions will also not start immediately. But after 20 years and more of conversation, debate, and controversy, Nigeria has a defining act for its petroleum industry. Could this be the turn around the corner that many people hope it will be? We'll keep our eyes on it. You're watching Business Edge. Some other things we're keeping our eyes on are coming up with NC4 to watch. Stay with us. And a few things we're keeping our eyes on. This is NC4 to watch, and we start with international oil companies operating in Nigeria are owing the Niger Delta Development Commission more than $4 billion. And this comes from the Minister of Niger Delta Development, Godswill Akpabio. The minister added that all of them have been defaulting and efforts are ongoing to get them to pay. Now, this will possibly put into question the Host Communities Development Trust being set up under the PIA. Nigeria's Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, said the federal government raised $669 billion, billion naira from the Nigerian capital market through the issuance of Sukuk bonds. She said the federal government, through the Debt Management Office, raised the amount from the capital market between 2018 and 2020. Away from Nigeria now, revenue generated from cargo and passenger services on the standard gauge railway rose by 33% in the 6 months to June, lifted by a rebounding economy. Data by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics shows that the passenger and cargo trains generated 7.936 billion Kenyan shillings in the period, up from 5.963 billion shillings in a similar period last year. And finally, Toyota Motor Corporation, the Japanese multinational automotive manufacturer, has announced that it will slash its worldwide vehicle production by 40% in September. This is due to the global shortage of microchips and resurgence of coronavirus cases across Asia. Microchips are transistor-based components used in electronic devices, including computers, phones, and vehicles' electronic systems to perform specific operations. And that's Business Edge for this Friday, and of course, wrapping up this week. If you've missed any of our shows, we've talked about the economic task ahead of Zambia's new president. We've taken a look as well into issues here in Nigeria and across the continent. You can head to our YouTube channel and, of course, subscribe there. Follow us on social media at News Central TV. Download our mobile app and take us with you wherever you go. And watch us live as we are, of course, on your TV, Star Times Channel 274, Apple TV Channel 23, Vision 247, and Free TV as well. I'll see you Monday morning, 11 a.m. West African time, as we take a look at the big business, financial, and economic conversations happening here on the continent. I'm Tolulokwe Adeleru Balogun. Have a good weekend.